What's up, Buff Nation? Today is Black Friday. Hopefully you had a wonderful Thanksgiving with friends and family. We've got a lot of good stuff for you today, so make sure that you're locked in. Make sure that you're ready to go. Grab you a turkey leg, some leftovers, and let's talk about it. We're chatting today about a couple of things. Some great stories on a huge recruiting win. Also, another Hall of Famer possibly joining Coach Prime's staff. And then, of course, we will talk about the Utah game, which is coming up in just a day. But first of all, let's sit back and listen to this big recruiting win that Coach Prime just had. Cam McKell, we talked about him a couple of weeks ago. After he took his official visit, On3's recruiting predictor had him at a 60% to go to Georgia. This is a top 100 kid. Now, if you're not super familiar with recruiting or you don't follow it kind of tooth and nail, this is a massive pickup. A kid who was 60% to go to Georgia, a top 100 athlete. He's a top 10 cornerback on 3. He's the number 4 cornerback on 247 Sports, right in Kirby Smart's backyard. The two-time defending champion Kirby Smart's Georgia Bulldogs could not land this kid. Who went in and got him? Coach Prime. There is no concern around Coach Prime when it comes to recruiting cornerbacks. Year after year after year, he continues to get the best of the best, from Travis to Cormani to now Cam. Another elite prospect. South Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, all involved as well. But when the rubber met the road, it was Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffs. Now, there's a lot to like about this kid. He is super athletic, 6 foot, 180 pounds, moves incredibly well. A really big pickup. Not just because of who you got him against, but also just the kind of athlete he is. Coach Prime knows that athletes here in the Southeast, I'm in Tampa, so kind of in that region, and Coach Prime knows that that's where a lot of your corners, a lot of your wide receivers end up coming from. And again, went into Kirby Smart's backyard and picked this kid up. We told you that recruiting would take off. Obviously, Cam doesn't seem too bothered by the fact that Colorado's end of their year has not gone as well as maybe the beginning. Kids still buy in. Kids still see and trust the process. They know what Coach Prime is building, and this is massive for the Buffs. Next up, I want to talk about something that Coach Prime hinted at a little while ago and then confirmed even more so in his weekly meeting. He talked about how Warren Sapp, that's right, NFL Hall of Famer, Super Bowl champion, one of the greatest defensive tackles to ever play in the NFL, will be joining his staff. Now, he's talked about this a couple of times, but now really puts the confirmation to it. And that's pretty impressive. Again, I just mentioned it, but I grew up in Tampa, Florida, and I remember Warren Sapp playing for the Bucs and causing all kinds of chaos, havoc, panic along that defensive line. I'm excited to see what he can bring from a coaching staff perspective. Obviously knows the game of football, knows Coach Prime very well, and has the respect of so many. Played at the University of Miami, has good Florida ties in the state here. And I think that'll be really big, not only from a coaching and development standpoint, you're bringing in an NFL Hall of Famer, but also a recruiting standpoint. These coaches and players and their kids and their parents all want to know what your pedigree is. And not that Coach Prime doesn't bring enough of that on his own already, but when you think about the fact that now Warren Sapp, an NFL Hall of Fame defensive lineman, again, one of the best defensive tackles to ever play. I grew up and did not like the Miami Hurricanes. You either loved or hated that program, but you had to respect Warren Sapp. And then when he got onto my favorite NFL team with the Bucs, it was pretty special to watch. So now, not only am I going to have Coach Prime there that I like rooting for, that I enjoy, Warren Sapp going out there. Coach Sapp is going to be a phenomenal asset and something that I think only Deion Sanders could have pulled off. Nobody else was getting Warren Sapp. Nobody else was adding that kind of Hall of Fame talent to their coaching staff. Coach Prime did it again. And I think it's going to pay massive dividends. The trenches have to get better in Colorado if we want to see this team take the next level, take it to the next step. If Warren Sapp can get them to the next level along the defensive side of the ball, if the offensive line can continue to improve as well, we can see a team that goes from 1 to 4 or 5 wins up to a team that goes from 4 or 5 wins up to 7, 8, 9 wins next season, or maybe even more. All right, finally today, let's talk about our final regular season game of the year. This is an epic matchup between both Colorado and Utah. Utah, a really good team. They're 7-4. Just been okay in conference, 4-4. They're unranked right now. The spread is Utah minus 22. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But it's 3 p.m. Eastern on the Pac-12 network. It is at Utah. So pretty exciting for the Buffs to be able to go play in Salt Lake City, a phenomenal venue. You may remember the very first Thursday night of the year, Utah played Florida. Florida came in and just really had no clue what was going on with the crowd noise. Florida likes to brag that their stadium, the Swamp, is just the most incredible atmosphere ever, and nothing else ever rattles their team. Well, Utah Stadium gets pretty rowdy, and that was week one. Things have certainly not gone the way they wanted because their quarterback, Cam Rising, never came back from injury, but it's still a crowd that gets pretty rowdy, and that's something that Colorado will have to deal with. They started out 4-0. They got off to a pretty hot start. They were ranked early in the year, and then they lost to Oregon State. Utah won their next two matchups against both Cal and USC, but then they lost to Oregon, and they went to lose their next two contests against Washington and Arizona. Now, all four losses have been to the best of the best in the Pac-12. They've kind of had a murderer's row schedule, maybe even a slightly bit tougher schedule than Colorado's has been in conference. They lost against ranked Oregon State, ranked Oregon, ranked Washington, and ranked Arizona. And Utah is playing for a better bowl game with this matchup. Colorado, unfortunately, is only playing for pride at this point, having been eliminated from bowl eligibility. They also likely are not to make a bowl at 5-7, even if they win, as there are a number of teams slotted ahead of them in the APR standings. Still, you want to see Colorado come out and play with a lot of pride in this game. You can't treat this game like the season's just over. This is your last chance to make an impression on a lot of people. One, donors and people that are giving to the program. Number two, recruits that are considering coming to your program. It is not a good look if you come out in this game and just quit or just give up early because what do we really have to play for anyway? I don't expect that, but it is something that I think Coach Prime is really driving into these kids' minds. Number three, just your own personal pride. Nobody wants to be a quitter. Nobody wants to give up early. Nobody wants to throw in the towel early. You signed up and you're on scholarship and you're receiving NIL funds to be here and to play football. You got to go out there and lay it all on the line, even if you're not going to make a bowl. Now, that's not for me to tell the kids. I know Coach Prime's saying all of that stuff. He doesn't preach honor and respect and love and dedication and all those things to let his kids go out and just, it's the last game, who cares? I expect Colorado to play their absolute butts off. Utah's a very good team. Whether or not Colorado comes out with the win or not, who knows? But I do expect them to come out and play really, really well. Now, Utah does not have a very good passing offense. They're 108th on the year. And again, there's 133 teams. They're just not very good throwing the ball. Reminder, Colorado is very nearly top 10. They're number 12, and they were top 10 before Shedeur went down last week, and that kind of hurt their numbers a little bit. They dropped a couple of spots. They've thrown 9 interceptions over their 11 games. Reminder, Colorado has only thrown 4. A couple of those are tipped passes that Colorado has thrown. So Colorado definitely takes care of the ball better. They have the 35th best rushing offense, so about 180 yards a game. They are much better at running the ball than they are passing the ball. They have the 63rd best passing defense. They're not necessarily elite there. That's kind of right in the middle of the pack, just average. And so if Shedeur plays, if he was in there mixing it up, I think they have a really good chance to throw the ball all over. If he doesn't, it might be a little bit of a struggle this weekend. Last week, Colorado played against the 71st best rushing offense in the country in Washington State. This week, they play the 6th best rushing defense. I don't expect Colorado to have a ton of success running the ball. I think if they're going to win, if they're going to compete in this thing, they're going to have to air it out a little bit. Bryson Barnes, he's completing just under 60% of his passes. He's got about 1,500 passing yards, 12 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. Not great. He's been very average. They don't throw the ball a lot because, again, Cam Rising's not in there. Their kind of superstar quarterback who announced that he is coming back for another season is not there to kind of take that pressure, take that load off of them. And so Barnes has really just been okay. He's a junior from Milford, Utah. He stepped into the role of starting quarterback with Cam being sidelined and out for the season with an injury. Now they have a leading rusher, Jaquindon Jackson. He's got about 674 yards. Devon Vele is their leading receiver with just under 600 yards on the season. I want to talk about our prediction just a moment. But first, let me give one more time some love to Prize Picks. It's your last week to get in on the action in college football's regular season, but you'll be able to through the postseason, the bowls, the NFL playoffs, and more. Make sure if you're on the Prize Picks app, you're using our code BUFFS, BUFFS. You get a 100% match up to $100. We've told you this all week, but Prize Picks is very simple. It's a daily fantasy game where you pair player projections more or less and try and make money. If Shador's over-under is 150, 250 yards, whatever, you take the more or less. You pair that with Travis Hunter's more or less receiving total, and boom, you make money. You see what you can get out of the app. Again, Buffs, BUFFS on the Prize Picks app. All right, we've ridden with Coach Prime every single week of the year, and we're probably just going to do it again to make it a clean, even sweep. Listen, Utah is a big favorite in this game for a reason. Going in to Utah is going to be incredibly difficult. I think this is a really tough spot for the Buffs. I don't necessarily know that I would bet this. My head's telling me that it is going to be very tough to upset Utah. I'd love to be wrong there. My heart will not let me pick against Coach Prime. So I think my head is telling me that Utah probably wins this going away. I think that you're just kind of matched up and at the end of your rope when it comes to the Buffs this year. Now, I expect them to come out and fight. I expect them to come out and play extremely hard. I expect them to come out and really lay it all on the line. And just think Utah is probably a little bit more talented here. My head's telling me that Utah wins. You certainly should not bet this game. Don't be going and putting the mortgage down on the Buffs as much as I told you to do that in the beginning of the year. I told you we'd beat TCU. I told you we'd beat Nebraska. Trust me on this one. I am not betting on Colorado. If you want to play with the spread, that's one thing. 22 points, that is a lot. If we stay in it, you could certainly kind of pick some cash up there. But I'm not advising you to go out and bet on Colorado to win this game. My heart won't let me pick against Coach Prime this year, and we've picked him 11 straight times. We ain't going to break that streak now in Week 12. I got nothing to lose. I'm not ashamed of being wrong. My head tells me that Colorado is not winning this game. My heart says that they will find a way to kind of play up in their final game of Coach Prime's inaugural season there in Boulder. And so give me the Buffs to win. Shootout, 31-30. Don't ask me what the score would be for just my head on that one. I'll stick with just the heart prediction. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in all year. We're not going anywhere. I know that there were a few less videos this week. Took a little vacation. Had some troubles with technical difficulties and stuff up there in the mountains of Georgia, but we are back. We'll have a lot of content for you on offseason with a bunch of recruiting stuff, a bunch of staff stuff. You want to make sure you're locked in with the channel. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. We appreciate you. A wonderful Thanksgiving, a good weekend coming up. Enjoy the game. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you for watching the Prime Time for college football.